This is the fourth class on Bereshis, on Genesis 1:1. The first three classes we gave an introduction and we went through the words and letters of the verse, the first verse. Of course, there's always more. And basically, the translation we have of the first verse is, with wisdom is brought forth a power of boundaries, with the balance of opposite movement, and with the desire to do the Creator's will, which is a little bit different than the common translation, in the beginning God created heaven and earth. So let us look at the difference between how we grew up understanding it in the common translation and how this translation changes it to some degree. When we look at, in the beginning God created heaven and earth, people have a discussion. When did it happen? What time did it happen? How old is the world? And everyone discusses not just how to translate the word, but they look at it from a place of time. But when you translate it with wisdom or with thought, or with some of the other meanings that we mentioned that the word means, then it's not talking about time and space. So it changes the whole dynamics of how we study it, how we understand it. When you say it's in the beginning, there is just so much written about that people write to prove that Torah makes sense in the timeline of the world and creation. And they use all different interpretations and try to figure out what the Torah means, what span of time the Torah is talking about. And there are those who disprove the Torah, say it's too short, it can't be, this timeline that the Torah gives us is impossible, and therefore the Torah is not correct. But after seeing that the word actually all the words have other meanings, we now realize that all the discussion arguments are really about an issue that doesn't exist in the Hebrew text. In the meaning of the words, it's not about time. It's about thought, wisdom. It's a concept here. It's a creative concept, the energy of creation, not about time. So all the thing that all these people think they're so intelligent and so brilliant about is because they're not going into what the Hebrew words actually mean. And if you just take the English translation as that word and you think that that's what the Torah is saying, you're missing the whole point. The word Torah means guidance. It's a book about guidance. And it reflects, everything it speaks about reflects guidance in life. And within the words lays a life force that flows to each part of our existence. But that life force is not of our existence. That is why it's difficult to understand. The life force the Creator gives equally to everything and everyone is difficult for us to understand because we see specific things. Each thing has its own type of energy. We don't see where it all comes from, and therefore it's very difficult for us to comprehend when we see things that we can only relate to things and hold things that we quantify, that we limit. The last word in that first verse is Aretz, which is translated as earth. And we explained there are many different names for earth, although we didn't go into the different meanings of them, but there are many different names. In Leviticus, in Vayikra, it says, I will give peace, v'nasati shalom ba'aretz. I'll give peace in the earth. If you do what the Creator wants, you don't destroy and go out of the boundaries that the Creator created. Nature has a certain boundary. And if you try to think that you're clever and you can create things and cross those boundaries, you create destruction. So it says there in Leviticus that if you do things the way the Creator is, the flow is, in creation, in nature, then I will give peace in the Aretz. and normally it's translated land, but we've translated as desire. I will give peace in the desire. In other words, in the desire of what the Creator wants in this creation. The commentaries, Rabbeinu Bachya, Ramban, Rekantia, say that this, what it says, I'll give peace in Oretz, it takes us back to the first verse, where it says the word Oretz. And they also bring the word, that which it says in Ecclesiastes, which King Solomon says, it says, V'sa'olam nasan b'libam, I've put the world in their hearts. Now there, it uses the word olam, which olam actually has another meaning. It has a few meanings. It has a meaning of concealment. That there is the concealment of the connection was put in people's hearts. There is another meaning of the word olam, which is also not even less known, but it is brought down a few places from the Almo, Ilaim. Almo is a young woman. Ilaim is a nar, a young boy or young man. And so there that means that God put in the element of youth and vigor into a person's heart. When you connect with the heart, you connect with that energy of life, of vigor. So when it says here in the sentence, in the verse, in Leviticus, I'll give peace in the Oretz, it means that if you want to connect with the origin, with the life force of the Creator as it was at the beginning of creation, then you have to go and live in accordance with the flow of the Creator in creation, the desire of the Creator in creation. And when you go with that flow, that brings peace. And when you don't go in that flow, then all different imbalances and different things occur. You don't find peace. In Chronicles 1, chapter 17, it says, Omik amcha ki Yisrael gayachad baretz. Who is a nation like Yisrael, like your people Israel, a nation that reveals the oneness in Aretz. They homogenize the oneness of the Creator with the earthly existence through fulfilling the desires and wishes of the Creator. The word Yisrael, the name Yisrael means Yashar El, straight to the power. Straight to the power source. So when we connect directly with the Creator, then the desire of the Creator flows through us. So this is an aspect of the word Oretz, when translating desire and connecting it with our being here. And last week someone asked about the heart, because the beginning of the verse begins with wisdom, and the word Oretz in this instance therefore refers to the heart, the connection to the heart and things that happen with the heart, because that's where the desire flows. When you can connect to the Creator with wisdom, with intellect, and you can connect with your heart. Both have connections. But when you connect with the mind, it's often cold, which is why in translations you find a coldness and separation from the text. Whereas with the heart, you can find sometimes the other side, too much emotion and compassion, too much feeling, and not enough understanding. But there's wisdom of the heart and wisdom of the mind, which work together, and then as they work together, you're in total flow with all of creation. The Torah also was not given at Shavuos next week. The Torah was not given on a specific date. When Moses came down with the tablets, it doesn't give an exact date. And in fact, there's a discussion. If the date was 6 or 7 of Sivan, it's not about a date. And it's also not about a specific place. God could have taken the Jews into Israel and given to them in Jerusalem, and it's a place in Israel. But had they been brought into the land, the tribe that the Torah was given at their place, the tablets would say, it belongs to us. It's more connected to us because it was given in our land, in our place. By giving it in a midbar, in a wilderness, it doesn't have a place either. It's open to everyone. It's equal to everyone. And in fact, that is one of the elements of Torah, that Torah was given to be a guidance for all people, for all nations, for all people, just that later on people took it in their own direction. As with every good thing that begins, people go in their own tangent, which is normal, seems to be a normal way. And what we're trying to do is somehow reconnect and come back to the original energy as much as we can, to connect with the words and with the Torah. Each word of Torah has many meanings. Sometimes we can best understand the meaning not by intellectualizing it, but by feeling the word. Listening to our feeling, listening to our senses. There are certain things in life that you get a clear understanding if you feel it and listen, not if you comprehend it. Sometimes your understanding, if you're stuck with your understanding, you don't sometimes hear other perspectives or other ways. So the same thing is with Torah words. And that was in the ways that we're taught to contemplate in Torah or to do meditation. One of the ways is to feel the letters and the words that you're doing. So you study it, you understand it. You have to have logic, which is part of who we are. And then you go and you see what the feeling tells you. You don't stay stuck just in the mind. And in fact, Hebraic scholars use a myriad of different ways to understand the words. And they're not limited to just the root word or to a translation or several translations. They incorporate different arrangements of letters, numerical values, and all different extrapolations. Medrash, Kabbalah. There are so many, and many times I read, I don't always understand, where did they extrapolate? How do you get this from the word? I see many different things. I sit and I wonder. And sometimes if you wonder, you don't know the answer. But if you keep studying, keep reading, eventually you find an answer to most of the questions. Not to all of them, but to most of them. But then you find more questions. So, in this way, each letter and each word has a relationship to everything in creation on some level. The very fact that we're all here on this one earth gives us a relationship. So if I destroy or do something to the earth at my place, it affects people in other places too. We're not just each one on his own and can do what they want. What we do directly affects other people in a small way or a larger way. We affect each other. So, connecting through your senses to the Hebrew words also gives us a keener insight into the word, and it gives us it triggers a higher clarity in our thoughts, in our speech, in our vision. We see things differently. We think differently. It changes our being. It changes our energy, the energy of our body. So, in taking the translations that we've shown of the words, of various translations, and comparing it to the translations that we know of, it changes our perspective. It expands us to ways that we have not thought before. If you read the Torah as simply a humanistic or moralistic story, then we have always questions. Who, what, when, where, why, the 5 big W's. But since the Creator is not a regular author that you can critique like anyone, so there's a different way of understanding. It's not a question, it's a question of how do I understand it? And sometimes the answer is learn more. Sometimes the answer is relax. There are different ways to understand more. But asking how I can understand is a more humble way to be able to listen than saying why, what. And you can often hear in people's questions the way they ask. they're not going to hear an answer, or they will be open to an answer. So, in whatever the case is, it takes time and quiet contemplation in order to start hearing the words and analyze them. And since Hebrew is a very descriptive and poetic language, it's full of expressions and every word has flowing energy to it. Whereas when you read it in English, it's not a flowing energy. It doesn't always flow. It's often cold words. It doesn't have that life force that the Hebrew has. Listening to each word is important because it allows us to connect to the soul aspect that's inherent in each word. Just like a human being has an energy, a life force, so too does each word. But just as in order to know the soul of a person, you have to listen and not just be stuck on what you see, but you have to go beyond the regular vision, have a deeper perspective. So too in words of Torah, you have to go beyond just the physical formation of the word. And developing the tool of listening actually will help us understand it. Then you have the sounds of the words, also have an effect and make a difference. And the shapes of the letters, and each one represents its own thing. But since we're human beings, there's only so much we can absorb at any one time. But as long as we continue learning, we will get somewhere. Now, the gift of Torah, this guidance that we were given, that was given to us through Moses in the wilderness, was intended to assist people in bonding with the Creator, to connect with an existence that's beyond human comprehension. We have limitations. As human beings, we're limited in different ways. And these limitations prevent us from certain things. So the best we can do as a human being who's always alive is do the best we can in our small way, in our way. That's what we give to the whole creation. Whether we understand why the Creator has us doing things, or why the Creator wants us here, or why existence is here, we don't know. We often think we know. People look for reasons why we're here. We were created for this, for that, for the other, but all those reasons are only reflective of limited perspectives of creation, of existence. That's why there's always something that happens that doesn't fit in to the perspective you think you have. The universe is huge. We have no understanding why it's there. We don't understand the world is so insignificant, so small in the whole universe, and yet it's all connected. There's signals from the earth to the universe, the earth receives from the universe. And whenever you're receiving and giving, there's always a space in between. It's interesting, we all give and receive at the same time, but we don't always see that. Sometimes we're too busy giving, we don't see what we're getting. Sometimes we're too busy taking, we don't see what we should be giving. So, in the translation that we've done, it's taken me time over the years, and I've gone through piece by piece to try and put things together so we can have this class and go through the words, and we will continue doing the second verse and the third verse and the fourth. We will continue going, and you'll see how everything changes. If the first verse finishes and the earth, instead of and the earth, it finishes and the desire, then the second verse, it becomes a description of the desire in creation. It's no more about time, space, or physical earth. It's about desire. It's about things that are not so physical. But we understand what desire is, and it describes what happens with desire. Because everything that exists only because this is what the Creator wanted to exist. And so, in order to understand desire of the Creator and the will of the Creator, we have to understand desire and will. And so the Torah then goes on to explain what the will of the Creator is, and desire, and all the elements that come in as we will go with the verses. Life is constantly evolving. It's a process of creation, constantly evolving. As life turns and shifts, each element has balances and imbalances. When something is balanced, it still has within it some type of imbalance, which is why it can be imbalanced. When things are imbalanced, imbalance means it has balance in it, it's just out of balance. It can be brought back to balance. So the fact that something is where it is now doesn't mean in the next moment it won't shift. And we were given the ability of wisdom, a gift of wisdom to use in our thinking, in our speaking, in our actions. But in order to use it appropriately, we also have to know our limitations. And when we know our own limitations, it helps us better with the balance, to create the balance that we need. A person who is totally balanced does not have jealousy or entitlement. That doesn't have feelings of those things, because everything is perfectly balanced. Everything's where it should be. You don't have what you don't need. There's not more, not less. From the perspective of a person who's balanced, everything is exactly the way it should be. And the same is true with people who exist on a plane that's not synonymous with other people. It's not relevant what other people have or don't have. They're in a different space. Yet, because everything is shifting all the time, it causes reactions that happen within society. So a person might feel they're in a secure place, and then something happens, and everything shifts. It's not secure anymore. Or a person may be in a place where there's no answer, and suddenly something happens, and where did this come from? And everything changes. But as life goes on, we have to make choices, and the choices reflect taking personal responsibility for adapting to the greater wisdom, the wisdom of the Creator, that rules all events that occur in the world. One of the difference between saying it's with wisdom or it's in the beginning with thought is that if you say it's with wisdom or thought, then every person has to be responsible. If you say it's in the beginning, it's about time, then you're not responsible anymore. You don't need to have responsibility. Because it's something to do with time. It's not about you anymore. It's not an individual journey anymore. There's wisdom in everything. Thus, a person is responsible for his or her choices, as well as discovering and defining our function in this existence. And people come and say, what am I here for? What did God create me? What am I doing here? And it's a good question. The answer is, stop asking and start listening. If you're here at this moment, it's because you need to be here at this moment. The next moment may be somewhere else, but you need to be here. And if you're here, you need to listen. If you're busy talking, you can't hear. So you need to have silence and quiet to listen. But even when it's quiet, you have to have some experience in knowing how to listen. So it takes practice. It doesn't always come straight away. Now, in the verse, we have different types of creations. It starts, there's wisdom, that's one. Then it says boundaries. Boundaries were created, otherwise you couldn't have existence. Then you have balance, and then you have desire. Now, if you create wisdom, but you don't have boundaries. You don't have a power of boundaries. What happens? With people who have a lot of wisdom, they use it, but it's very destructive. A creation that has no boundaries has no balance and is destructive. Creation with boundaries and balance has no movement. It's got wisdom, it's got boundaries, it's got balance, it's perfect where it is. There's nowhere to go. Desire was created in order that there should be movement. Eretz was created for movement to happen. So the verse teaches us that everything came in this world with wisdom. From where? From an undefined source. From something which we do not comprehend. Just as a source is something we cannot define, because the source created definition, it's beyond definition, so too the essence of that wisdom of creation is also beyond comprehension. In other words, it's totally okay to say, I don't know why we're here. I don't know why God created the world or the Creator created the world. It makes no sense to me. That is perfectly normal, because it can't make sense. We can put excuses to it. We can try to comprehend different aspects of it, but the wisdom of the Creator, which created it, is beyond that comprehension. So we just accept that there is wisdom in everything. And in fact, when you study everything, you scientifically, you take things apart, you see there's an amazing relationship between things and in nature that's beyond. We would never have understood it if we wouldn't have the tools to analyze it. Whether it's the chemicals or whether it's the magnifying glass, if we didn't have tools, we wouldn't know it exists. We would just look at things in a very coarse or simple physical way without seeing the depth in each thing. So wisdom is channeled through the word Bereshis. The first word of the Torah is Bereshis. The wisdom is channeled through that word. So the word itself it's not Chachma, it's a channel. What is a channel? A channel is something that connects point A to point B. Electrical wire connects A to B. A telephone wire. You want to connect the radio. You want to connect different things. They're connections. So the wisdom of there's wisdom in each connection, but that's not the wisdom of the Creator. That's just how it becomes channeled. So the Creator, since the Creator has no definition and no description, it's able to create something that is opposite. It's able to create definition because it's not a contradiction to it. Because since the Creator has no definition, it's beyond definition, it's totally abstract. Opposite poles, definition, no definition, is something that we cannot work together. But the Creator that created everything created definition, non-definition. Before there was definition, the concept of non-definition didn't exist. You need definition to create non-definition. Before that, everything had just no description. Now, also, when you say it came forth, Bereshis is a channel between the two, it tells you there are many other possibilities. That even though this existence came through the word Bereshis, came through this channel, that doesn't mean there are not a myriad of other existences. It doesn't mean that there's not other types of worlds or other types of creations. We have no clue. It's not a description of what else could be existence. It's telling us the existence comes through in a certain way, which allows anything else to exist also. So someone reading it and saying, this is the only existence, is again narrowing their perspective in their mind. We don't know of any other existence, so what? Doesn't mean it's not there. It's possibly there. The verse is not about telling you about other existences, there are higher worlds or lower worlds. It's about guidance in life, that everything has wisdom in it. And when we connect to that wisdom, then everything falls in place. We become responsible. And when we become responsible, things happen in a more balanced way. When everything is balanced, there's no movement to pull it in any direction. So desire is created. And there's a space which receives and gives. Space where desire receives balance, and where balance reaches out to connect with desire. desire, when you have this desire for something, it usually reflects that something is missing. Yet, in the perfect existence, everything is perfectly the way it is. Everything is the desire of the Creator, and therefore everything is exactly the way it has to be. The imbalances are perfectly the way the Creator wanted them. The movement is exactly the way it has to be. And so, when one understands that the reason everything is the way it is because it's beyond our comprehension, comes from a space, a wisdom that's beyond our comprehension, then we can allow everything to be what it is, and we can focus on what we need to focus on, and not waste our energy with things that go nowhere or create dissension and separation, but focus on how to bring everything back to that oneness. There's also discussion, how did creation happen? And there's a discussion of 6 days and what happened on each day. And when we get to that, we will show you that the word day actually has a different meaning. It means different levels of expression of the Creator in creation. And so when you're talking about thought, everything happened in the same thought. Everything that you read in the whole chapter happened in one thought. It didn't happen at separate times because time was not relevant here. And it's about thought. What is thought? When you think something or you feel something, you don't have words yet for it. What happens? You have a feeling, it goes to the brain. There's something in your mind, you know something, you understand something, but you haven't got words for it. And then it goes from a place of just a point form, you know there's something there, and it develops according to the words that we use. If we're taught a language, we then extrapolate from that feeling or that thought and put it in the words of the language we use. If you know a different language, you put it in the words of that language. And so every language has different things that can be expressed in that language, and you cannot really translate it into another language because it doesn't translate that feeling. So thought itself is not words, not the words we use in our mouth, and not the words we learn in English or any other language. It's an energy. And then we take it and we think in our mind. But the way we think, even if you're thinking in a language, it's still not the same. It's an abstract form of the letters and words. It's not written words. It's abstract. And then when you speak it, it depends on the gutturals, the different parts of the mouth, the throat, the teeth, the whole mouth, the lips, how it comes out. So you can think something and it may not come out exactly as you're thinking. And so you can be saying something and say, where did that come from? And so the same thing is with an action. You can think something and what you do is different than what you thought. Or what you do is what you thought. So there is a process from the inception of something till how it develops through the mind, through the body, until it comes out in its completed form, whether it's speech or whether it's writing, however it comes out, a development. But the initial thought is not limited to what you do later. It has its own life. So Bereshis, in a certain sense, is the inception of this creation, but it's not the beginning of this creation, because the whole creation is really something that came up in the thought of the Creator, which is not the beginning, because it's not about time. It's a thought that occurred and continues to occur, as creation is constant. If you take that life force that existed out of everything or out of something, the thing does not continue to exist. It's its very life force. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
Is it possible, could all this be, all reality, could it be part of the Creator's mind? Like, in other words, our existence right now, right here and now, this whole thing, this all be taking place, even though we're on Earth and blah, 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 could it all be in, like, you know what I'm trying to
You're asking if our life and everything exists is a fiction. The answer is it is. most people's life is based in fiction, or the way they get through life is through fiction. And you're asking is if this is all in the thought of the Creator, what type of existence is it? When your mind is thinking something, to you that is reality. That's real. And if you change your mind, you can change that whole reality. So often, the way to change life is changing your perception of it. It changes the whole energy and the reality of it. So the reality of this is that this is the desire and thought of the Creator, and therefore it exists only as long as the Creator is thinking or wants it to be. If the Creator decided that this existence or something shouldn't be, it would just cease to exist. Just as the moment you stop thinking about something, it doesn't exist. Yeah.
How is it that something has to be defined in order to be not defined? I mean, I would think if something is not defined, then that it's the same thing as saying that it doesn't exist. So that before anything was created, there was no definition.
That's right. There was no God either. Once you have people and you have a world, you can say there's a God. But if there's no existence, there's no God either. When you create one thing, you create the opposite automatically. And without creating this one thing, you don't have the opposite.
Well, God was always here.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, it says in our prayers that He was, is, and will always be.
No, you're not listening. God is a definition. It's not a Hebrew word, okay? A definition. There's a power. You call it God. But you call it God. If you wouldn't exist, there would be no one to say there's a God either. The concept of God would not exist either. The concept of God exists because you exist. Yes.
But the Creator would still be there, whether or not we...
No, the Creator wouldn't be there because there's no creation. We only call it a Creator because we are a creation. If we wouldn't be here, there'd be no Creator either. This is just an existence that has no beginning, no end. It has no definition. You cannot define something. The moment you define it, it is this and it's not that. If you say it's the Creator, then it's the Creator and not the creation. If you say it's God, then it's God and not something else. Then you're creating a separation between the life force, the oneness of all existence.
Then if there was a time when there was no Creator, then where did the Creator come from?
That is a good question. And the answer is, I don't know, you don't know, and no one's going to know. And the reason we're not going to know is because we are beings that have a beginning and an end. And we can only comprehend something that has a beginning and end. We cannot comprehend something that has no beginning or no end. It's not, we don't have the power ability to comprehend that. We're limited.
You said before that the Creator had a beginning. That there was
No.
That there was a time when there was no Creator, and then there were creations, and when there were creations, then at that point there was a Creator. So that you're implying that there was a time when there was no Creator.
And we're just talking about the Creator of the world. And what I'm saying is, if without a creation, there is no Creator.
Without the creation, there would not be Creator.
That's correct. The only reason we say Creator is because since we exist here, in however you want to look at it, our existence means there's another type of existence. We come from somewhere. The Creator is where we come from. But if we wouldn't be here, there'd be no definition of Creator or God or anything else.
But the question is, my question is, when the force or something, be it whether we're here or not, wouldn't he, because of us he exists?
No.
Force exists? No.
If you...
But would a force and energy or whatever still be there without...
There's an entity without a creation.
The being that all life force comes from, that existence, does not need us to exist. Okay?
Right. Okay.
So it exists, but it has no definition. It has no form, no shape. Because we exist, however you want to look at our existence, we need to create a definition of where we come from. We have parents, we know where we come from, they come from their parents. We come from somewhere. We can only comprehend coming from somewhere. Whatever that life force is, that gives life force for all existence, you can call it whatever name it is, we call it a name, but it's not limited to the name we call it.
No, that's not.
And its existence isn't dependent on whether we think it exists or not. If you're not here, it still exists.
Right, that's right.
If everything is not here, it still exists. It's not dependent on what happens here. And what happens here doesn't change anything.
Right.
Because it's not limited
With us
to
or
anything
without
that's
us.
created. What?
Without this creation, with this creation, without this creation, that force would still be there.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the question is, there is a creation, so why did the bunch of Barashmo created man?
There's a creation. Why did God create man? Only God knows.
When you say man, you're talking about man and woman, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm chauvinist story about,
Till this day, with everything I've thought and studied, and I do not understand it. It makes no sense to me. None of it makes sense. And the reason it doesn't make sense, I'll just give you an example. People say the world was created to become spiritual. It makes no sense. We come from a spiritual world to become physical, to be spiritual. It makes no sense. People say it's in order to go through journeys, we go through difficulties, we learn, we gain from our experience. Makes no sense to me either, because the Creator can create everything with the understanding of all the experiences. You don't have to go through it to get there. It's a being that can do anything, so you don't have to go through it. So any reason you give me it's a nice reason. If you feel good with it, great. But it doesn't explain it, because it doesn't have to be that way. So all I can tell you is, I don't know. That's the truth.
I know there are many Perushim or Farshim, all kinds of opinions, philosophical views. But the bottom line is, my own personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
is that our tafkid in whatever time frame we are,
What is a tafkid?
Purpose.
is to be witness, more than a witness, but a living, expressing phenomena that the Creator is there. He created everything, and without someone saying that Bereshit bara Elokim et Hashem et haaretz, then there is no substance. A certain substance is missing in the whole realm over here. We are so different from the rest of the animal kingdom. We have speech, we have rationale, we have thought. We have to use all that to show that the Barishmu created the world. That's the bottom line.
That's okay, but I don't see that our being here adds anything or detracts anything, and I don't think we need to prove anything.
I don't think the cows are there going on mooing, and while they're mooing, they're saying they're most created the world. There is a certain level of humans. Humans are on a certain level. We have speech. We have the certain gifts that the Rabbanim gave humans is there to exalt the Rabbanish in the Bria, in not just Yetziat Mitzrayim. Yes, we have to remember Yetziat Mitzrayim every day, and there's tremendous. It's a tremendous event in Jewish history, Yetziat Mitzrayim, and also the whole world. But the bottom line is that we are witness. I mean, when I say witness, the whole, this Jewish world is supposed to be to bring out this whole idea of the creation, and that there is God, and there's a concept of God.
Okay. You're saying our purpose is to bring out that there's a concept of God.
God and the creation, everything that goes along with it.
Okay. the Creator has no purpose or reason for us being here. You cannot exalt the Creator more than what it is. So to exalt the Creator or bring out the Creator or make it more important makes no sense, because you cannot make it more important than what it is. So the idea of being here to praise God also makes no sense, because the praises don't add or don't detract.
So how can you call him a king? You cannot have a king without subjects.
Okay, you're calling him a king. That's correct. And that's exactly what we said. You call the Creator a king. The Creator is beyond the term king. King is a physical thing. And this is exactly what we're saying. The Creator is not limited to the terms you or someone else uses. These are physical terms, physical perceptions. The Creator is not limited to those physical perceptions. It's beyond that.
Yes, I understand. There's the Indian of infinite and definite.
No,
but,
the Creator is not infinite.
Huh?
The Creator is not infinite.
It's not infinite?
No.
It has gulot?
No. Listen. Infinity is limited.
Infinity is unlimited.
Unlimited.
What is the limitation of infinity?
There is no limitation.
There is no.
Okay. Then you're not listening to what you're saying. If it's infinite, then it's not finite. If it's infinite, it cannot be part of. Hold on a minute.
Infinity is that there's no limits.
Let me speak, please.
Huh?
Let me speak. Infinity is a definition. When you define something, you limit it to that definition. It is that and not something else. When you call something infinite, it cannot be finite. Because if it's finite, it's not infinite. If you say the Creator is infinite, that means the Creator cannot be part of a finite creation. So you've limited the Creator and you cannot bring it into this creation. The Creator is beyond infinite, beyond definition. And because it's beyond definition, it's part of the infinite and finite existence. This is...
You can cut the salami any way you want.
This is not...
Salami.
Excuse me. This is not cutting salami any way it wants, because there's not that much meat in salami anyway. So, it's not semantics. This is not...
When I was in college, infinite had absolutely no boundaries whatsoever. Infinite means...
I don't care what it meant in college. I'm talking about here, and I'm dealing with the Hebrew versus what it means in Hebrew. God, there's no word of God in Hebrew. The word infinite is not who the essence is, and neither is finite. And if you want to understand what it means, bringing what you're here for, then you need to understand what the definitions mean and what the limitations of those definitions are. If you don't want to hear the limitations of definitions, you will not comprehend it. The purpose, it says, for the Jewish people, or for the people here on earth to be here, is to bring a connection between the spiritual and the physical. They should be together. Before, at the beginning, there was no separation between physical and spirit. They were together. A separation was made. And what we do is we reveal the Creator in everything, the oneness in everything. And you take away the boundaries that exist. So this says that we are here to bring the oneness in creation, to reveal that. If that's what we need to do, and we're stuck on definitions, we'll never bring that oneness into creation. So you say you want to achieve something, but you're using thought that doesn't allow you to do it. I'm going to tell you a little story. But before I tell you a little story, it says in Bereshis bara Elokim eis hashamayim eis haaretz. It uses in Hebrew some words that don't need to be there. The word eis, and ve'es. It could say Bereshis bara Elokim shamayim v'aretz. With wisdom is brought forth Elokim, shamayim and aretz. Heaven and earth, or balance and desire. The word eis and hey is ato. Bereshis bara Elokim ato shamayim v'ato aretz. You, the Creator, are the balance, and you, the Creator, are the desire. Those extra letters mean you, and it puts the Creator into everything. I'm going to tell you a little story since you brought up your question. One day there was a young boy, and he went to his father and he said, "What's the difference between potential and reality?" And the father thought, for a moment and he said, you know what? Go ask your mother what type of house she would like to build with $40 million. Then go ask your teacher. And then go ask your best friend the same question. When you finish that, then find a carpenter and ask the carpenter what he would build with $40 million. So the child goes to the mother and says, Mommy, what would you do with $40 million? What type of a house would you build? And the mother says, I'd build a magnificent house. There'd be room for myself and your father, for all the kids, for grandkids. You could play. There'd be fantastic. There'd be room for everyone. Then he went to the mother and asked the question. So then went to the teacher and asked the question. The teacher said, I'd build a house. There'd be lakes and there'd be forests and we could teach people all about nature and there's so much we could learn. Then he went to a friend and the friend said, I built such a house we'd be lost. No one would be, we'd have the greatest time in our life. No one would be able to find us. We'd be hiding and no one would tell us what to do or how to do it or when to do it. We'd have a great time. Finally, the kid went to a carpenter and asked the same question. And the carpenter said, show me the $40 million and I'll show you the house. So the boy thought about these answers and a few days later went to the father and the father said, well, do you know the difference between reality and potential? And the boy said, yes. Potentially, you and I are living with people in heaven. However, realistically, you and I are living with people in a dream world. Everyone imagines and everyone thinks. And one of the things that we explained in the first class where you weren't here, but there's videos on YouTube if you want, is that the way it was translated, these Mefarshim, a lot of commentaries, was intentionally done by the Chachamim to be as far as possible away from the actual meanings, deep meanings of the words, so they wouldn't give the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral Torah, to everyone. So, and what we are doing through all the translations is show that the words have many meanings beyond what people normally think. So you can come and ask, this one says, that one says, and yes, we can discuss each one individually, their perspective or why they said it, but that's not the purpose of this class. That would take too long and away from the class. So what we are dealing with is the reality of the words, what they mean, and to find how we could connect with it to bring the oneness back into our life, to see that everything is the essence, is one essence, everything is one life, and to take the spiritual and physical and put it together, that they are one reality, not separate realities. And that's part of what we're doing in this class. So the beginning is about, the world's about wisdom, and wisdom is an amazing intertwining of energies of the highest nature, all completely connected with the Creator. A lot of the reasons that people give for creation, a lot of things are there to pacify people's minds, but they don't reflect how everything is completely connected with the Creator. In fact, they reflect separation. And if you start reading people's things, and you realize that the things people write, no matter how great you think the person is, often reflects their limitations and where they're connected or disconnected. But that is a whole thing of its own. Any other questions at the moment? Okay. So, how was the desire of creation in existence before creation? This desire in creation, what was it before?
He was probably bored.
No. You can be bored. You're taking your human feeling and applying it to something you don't comprehend. This is what a lot of people have an issue with. They take their vision of things, their feeling, perspective, and apply it to something they have no comprehension of. And then say that's what it is and what it isn't. And that's where a lot of people get into what is not exactly true. Because when you start putting words to something that you don't know what it is, you quantify and qualify it when you don't really know what it is, you always have things that you miss out by doing it that way. So whenever people try to tell me why the world is here or why things happen the way they are, I always hear what they don't tell me. And what they don't tell me is that the oneness of existence is beyond their comprehension. they do tell me. By telling me what they comprehend, they tell me what they don't comprehend. If you start off with the premise that you do not comprehend, and it's beyond understanding, then you can say, okay, what do I understand? How much do I understand? And you can put yourself in that space. And you learn. And it's interesting that the first 3 words of the Torah, Bereshis, Bara, Elikim, the last letters of Bereshis is a Tov, of Bara is an Aleph, and Elikim is a Shlos Mem, a final Mem. Those letters read Emes. Emes means truth. Emet, truth. So the truth is the last thing that comes out. People go through the whole journey, and then they say, if I would have known this when I was younger, if I would have known this at the beginning, the last thing that comes out is the truth. And the same thing for thousands of years, people have been going in circles. And now the world is where it is, with people having destroyed so much of it. And now finally the truth is coming out for those who want to hear it and listen. Those who want to stay stuck where it is can stay stuck. Everyone has a choice. But if you learn to listen, the truth is there. It's underlying and beyond everything. And it's not a one truth for one person or one nation. It's a truth that everything is connected with that life force. Everything receives life force from the Creator. Everything's connected. And people ask, is good or bad? It's not about good or bad, right or wrong, or higher or lower. It's beyond all that. It's about living totally in the moment, being totally at one with all existence. When you're at one in each moment, you flow with it as it goes. You don't get stuck by your perspectives or intellectual emotions. You go with it. Then you go with the way the Creator wants. Once you start putting it into a framework, you say, I'm better, they're better, these are worse, then it changes. Then dynamics is a separation from oneness and a separation from Creator. It's not about better or worse. It's not a right or wrong. It's a matter of being. And in that state, you do exactly what you want. One of the things of a tree or a plant is that they're better than a human being. Do you know why? Because a plant does not change why it was created. It stays the plant it is. A human being changes why he's here. Thinks he's wise, thinks he's clever. So he tries this and that. A plant doesn't. And that's one of the reasons we need to eat from plants, is because they have an energy of the Creator that's beyond the energy that we get. There's certain life force because it doesn't change. It's direct and it's pure. And we need to accept in ourselves pure energy that we don't have our own, which is why one reason we need to eat. How long can we exist the way we're existing? I don't know. There is no answer to anything, because as much as we think where things end, we have no answer. And the only answer is that if we trust that the Creator has wisdom in everything, the Creator also knows where it ends and where it will go. And when we trust, we have emunah and faith and trust that the Creator will do things in its time, even though we don't know, then it makes our life easier to go through. We don't fall over ourselves so much. We allow it to flow, and we don't get in the way of that flow. And then we end up where we're supposed to end up, because wherever we are is where we're supposed to be. And since we're all here, whether it's here in the class or listening to it, there's a reason we're listening. And the reason we're listening is because just as the world is becoming more corrupt, the corruption is actually coming out more on the news, people can see it more and more, so too the oneness is also coming out. It's slowly filtering out, and people are waking up, and it will take us beyond all the limitations that were put in place to keep us captive, to keep us limited, so we can get beyond it and become one with the Creator the way the Creator wants it to ultimately be, everything in total balance. Any questions?
Yes.
No? Yes.
Well, why did the Chachamim want to keep the Torah Shabbat Peh secret?
That is something we discussed in the first class. So if you look at the video of that, you'll see the answer to it, okay?